I appreciate it very much, and I want to thank the American people for their tremendous support. Millions and millions of people voted for us tonight, and a very sad group of people is trying to disenfranchise that group of people, and we won't stand for it. We will not stand for it. I want to thank the First Lady, my entire family, and Vice President Pence, Mrs. Pence, for being with us all through this. And we were getting ready for a big celebration. We were winning everything, and all of a sudden it was just called off. The results tonight have been phenomenal, and we are getting ready. I mean, literally, we were just all set to get outside and just celebrate something that was so beautiful, so good, such a vote, such a success. The citizens of this country have come out in record numbers. This is a record. There's never been anything like it. To support our incredible movement, we won states that we weren't expected to win. Florida, we didn't win it. We won it by a lot. And we won the great state of Ohio. We won Texas. We won Texas. We won Texas by 700,000 votes, and they don't even include it in the tabulations. It's also clear that we have won Georgia. We're up by 2.5% or 117,000 votes with only 7% left. They're never going to catch us. They can't catch us. Likewise, we've clearly won North Carolina, where we're up 1.4% or 77,000 votes with only approximately 5% left. They can't catch us. We also, if you look and you see, Arizona, we have a lot of life in that. And somebody declared that it was a victory for, and maybe it will be. I mean, that's possible. But certainly there were a lot of votes out there that we could get, because we're now just coming into what they call Trump territory. I don't know what you call it, but these were friendly Trump voters. And that could be overturned. The gentleman that called it, I watched tonight. He said, well, we think it's fairly unlikely that he could catch. Well, fairly unlikely. And we don't even need it. We don't need that. That was just a state that if we would have gotten it, it would have been nice, Arizona. But there's a possibility, maybe even a good possibility. In fact, since I saw that originally, it's been changed, and the numbers have substantially come down just in a small amount of votes. So we want that, obviously, to stay in play. But most importantly, we're winning Pennsylvania by a tremendous amount of votes. We're up 600, think of this. We're up 690,000 votes in Pennsylvania, 690,000. These aren't even close. It's not like, oh, it's close. With 64% of the vote in, it's going to be almost impossible to catch. And we're coming into good Pennsylvania areas where they happen to like your president. I mean, it's so we'll probably expand that. We're winning Michigan. I'll tell you, I looked at the numbers. I said, whoa. I said, wow, that's a lot. By almost 300,000 votes, and 65% of the vote is in. And we're winning Wisconsin. And so we're winning. We don't need all of them. We need, because when you add Texas in, which wasn't added, I spoke with the really wonderful governor of Texas just a little while ago, and Greg Abbott, he said, congratulations. He called me to congratulate me on winning Texas. I mean, we won Texas. I don't think they finished quite the tabulation, but there's no way. And it was almost complete, but he congratulated me. Then he said, by the way, what's going on? I've never seen anything like this. Can I tell you what? Nobody has. So we won by 107,000 votes with 81% of the vote. It's Michigan. So when you take those three states in particular, and you take all of the others, I mean, we have so many, we had such a big night. You just take a look at all of these states that we've won tonight, and then you take a look at the kind of margins that we've won them by. And all of a sudden, it's not like we're up 12 votes and we have 60% left. We won states, and all of a sudden, I said, what happened to the election? It's off. And we have all these announcers saying, what happened? And then they said, oh, because you know what happened? They knew they couldn't win. So they said, let's go to court. Did I predict this, Newt? Did I say this? I've been saying this from the day I heard they were going to send out tens of millions of ballots. I said exactly, because either they were going to win, or if they didn't win, they'll take us to court. So Florida was a tremendous victory, 377,000. Texas, as we said, Ohio, think of this. Ohio, a tremendous state, a big state. I love Ohio. We won by 8.1%, 461. Think of it. Almost 500,000 votes. North Carolina, big victory with North Carolina. And so we won there. We lead by 76,000 votes with almost nothing left. And all of a sudden, everything just stopped. This is a fraud on the American public. This is an embarrassment to our country. We were getting ready to win this election. Frankly, we did win this election. We did win this election. So our goal now is to ensure the integrity for the good of this nation. This is a very big moment. This is a major fraud in our nation. We want the law to be used in a proper manner. So we'll be going to the U.S. Supreme Court. We want all voting to stop. We don't want them to find any ballots at 4 o'clock in the morning and add them to the list. Okay? It's a very sad moment. To me, this is a very sad moment, and we will win this, and as far as I'm concerned, we already have won it. So I just want to thank you, and I want to thank all of our support. I want to thank all of the people that worked with us, and Mr. Vice President. Please.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to join you in thanking more than 60 million Americans who have already cast their vote for 4 more years for President Donald Trump in the White House. And while the votes continue to be counted, we're going to remain vigilant, as the President said. The right to vote has been at the center of our democracy since the founding of this nation, and we're going to protect the integrity of the vote. But I really believe with all of my heart, with the extraordinary margins, Mr. President, that you've inspired in the states that you just described, and the way that you launched this movement across the country to make America great again, I truly do believe, as you do, that we are on the road to victory, and we will make America great again. Thank you, Mr. President.
President Trump with a pound fist on his way out of the room, saying that he had expected that they would be in the East Room tonight as part of a celebration. He heralded the record turnout, talked about all the places where he said he has won by a lot. Florida, Ohio, among others. He did take issue, obviously, with the Arizona call that we have made here tonight. He said he believed that Arizona had, quote, a lot of life in that. There's still a lot of life in that, he said, in Arizona. So perhaps, maybe they're coming around a little bit on Arizona as those numbers continue to come in tonight. But then he made it perfectly clear that he sees this as a fraud on the American people. He said it was a very sad moment tonight. And he said, frankly, we did win this election as far as he is concerned. So
he said he won in North Carolina. He's won in Georgia. We have not made those calls as of yet. He is leading. And if you look at Pennsylvania, his numbers are accurate. He is up 600,000 votes in Pennsylvania. The other numbers that he cited in these other states are accurate as well. He is up there as well. In Arizona, he is trailing by about 150,000,
155.
which is more than the margin of that he's winning in North Carolina. There you look at the numbers in Arizona. And again, we've made that call. But the president defiant, saying that this is an effort to steal the election and that, frankly, quote, we have already won this election. Vice President Pence was a little bit more retrospect in how he said it. The counting continues, he said, and will continue to make America great again. Chris Wallace.
He also said we're on the road to victory, not that we've won. Mike Pence did. This is an extremely flammable situation, and the president just threw a match into it. He hasn't won these states. Nobody is saying he's won the states. The states haven't said that he's won. This goes right back to what Joe Biden said, which is the president doesn't get to say that he's won states. The American people get to say it, and the state officials get to declare it. And I guess, and I don't know whether he literally means it, but he said, we will be going to the Supreme Court because we want all the voting to stop. Well, voting to stop, yes, but vote counting? These states by state law all have the opportunity, and states routinely are unable to count votes by election night or early into the morning of the day after the election, and it goes on for days. Now, there may be a question as to how long you can continue to accept ballots, but there's no question that all these states can continue to count votes for days. They don't have to certify for weeks who has won the state. That was what happened in Florida back in 2000. So I don't know if he literally meant that he's going to try to stop the counting of the vote, but I would think that would be extremely inflammatory, and frankly, I don't think it's something that the courts would allow.
Dana, but he was also saying we don't want them to find votes in Pittsburgh or any other part of Pennsylvania.
Yeah, that all of a sudden you're going to find 100,000 votes that just happen to be in some trash can behind. I think that's what he was talking about. But Ben Shapiro, who voted for the president and supports the president, he tweets just now, no, Trump has not already won the election, and it is deeply irresponsible for him to say that he has. President Trump had some amazing victories tonight that he can take credit for on the Republican side of things. Look at this, that the United States Senate is likely to stay in Republican hands. The House races I mentioned just beforehand, not only winning in some of those swing districts, but a lot of the women that he backed in this party, and Elise Stefanik, the congresswoman from New York, they have so many things that they can talk about and be proud of tonight. And to say in a posture of, I'm convinced we're going to win. I believe that these races are going to be called for me and for us and for our movement. Just hang with me for another 24 hours. Instead, now, what will the headlines all be tomorrow? What will everybody be saying? Right. That he just went a step too far.
Yeah, that he claimed victory. He walked into Hail to the Chief tonight, taking advantage, obviously, of the bully pulpit and the incumbency. And made a very forceful statement about where he thinks this is going to go.
Well, he says it's a fraud on the American people, Martha. What struck me was he sort of did a jujitsu in which he said that it wasn't, even though he said he predicted we would come to this moment in terms of having to have the courts intervene, he said they are taking us to court, suggesting the Democrats are somehow taking him to court. I was confused by this. But in his mind, he's saying he won. He won this election, and that there's something being done by the Democrats to try to undo his victory, and he sees them as taking the initiative here in terms of inviting some litigation. But to my mind, the idea that he would say that, you know what, he wants the voting stopped, I just don't understand it, and I think it's, you know, I think it's beyond the pale there.
Well, again, first of all, let's welcome Shannon Breen, playing
Good
the role
morning.
of
Good
Britt
morning,
Hume.
Shannon.
I am. I'm a slightly less curmudgeonly at this hour.
Oh, there you go. Do
That's the only difference.
do you have any updates on the betting? No,
I
I'm just
don't.
kidding.
I feel like, do I need to pick up that part of
You
the
have to pick up
conversation
that
now?
conversation.
That's
But
my
now
part.
we are in legalese now. We are going down a legal road. We prepared for this as you were getting ready for the Justice Barrett hearings, that could be a possibility, and now it really does seem like it is.
Yeah, especially if we're talking about Pennsylvania. There's been so much focus, and you guys had the legal experts on, Professor Turley and Andy McCarthy, talking about this earlier, that the Supreme Court did punt on a couple of cases that people now have been saying, if they don't make this decision, it is going to come back to them. And there's now a very good possibility that happens. The Secretary of State there, or as they call it, the Secretary of the Commonwealth, has asked for these ballots to be segregated out. They come in past 8 p.m. tonight and through Friday. And Justice Alito, as I think it was Andy McCarthy talking about, joined by Justices Gorsuch and Thomas, said this may come back to us and that subset of ballots may be contested. They may actually get to a decision on the merits. Those ballots may or may not count. And so with everything going on in Pennsylvania, this is clearly going to be litigated. And that's the most likely place that it will ultimately end up, is at the Supreme Court.
What about the Supreme Court decision that they made, essentially extending the Pennsylvania deadline? And that didn't seem to fit with previous, how they approached it.
What they did in one decision was to not give an injunction. So they allowed it to move forward without deciding on the merits. Then the GOP in Pennsylvania came back, some of the leaders, and said, well, can we get an expedited decision? And then they voted 5-3 against taking it up in an expedited fashion. So they haven't ruled on the merits of this thing, but Justice Alito and the two who joined him left this opening to say, you can probably come back to us and we can probably get to the merits on this on another day, probably hoping that it wouldn't come back to them, but now it looks very much like that's a strong possibility.
Yeah. Obviously, Justice Amy Coney Barrett is now in the mix on this. She was able to kind of say, I can't weigh in on a couple of items as soon as she began wearing the robe. She cannot take a pass on any of this that's happening now, I wouldn't imagine, because it will be starting fresh at this point.
Right. Remember that Senator Cory Booker, just a couple of weeks ago, when she was still not yet confirmed, said, I think she needs to recuse from anything that comes up to the Supreme Court that has to do with the 2020 election and President Trump. But then that begged the question, well, what about Justices Gorsuch and Kavanaugh? If you're just going to say somebody appointed by President Trump can't decide a case about him, then you'd have to say all three of them have to recuse. The Supreme Court Code of Ethics is set so that only a justice can recuse themselves. No one can force them to. There is, a lot of leeway for them to say, oh, I have a financial interest, or I know a party in this case. Very rare that they recuse. They do it, but no one can force them to do it. They have to make the decision themselves. And I see no reason why she would say, okay, I'm out.